Today on Rescue Vet, an 11-year-old Dalmatian is unable to open her jaw without experiencing pain. Is a cancerous tumor the cause of her discomfort?
With the type of tumor that this most likely is, the prognosis is really not good.
A 9-year-old French bulldog has been struggling to walk for months. Will an MRI result in a prognosis worse than anticipated?
I'm not going to be one of those people that if he is in pain, that I'm just going to drug him up and keep him around.
Veterinary Specialty Care has relocated from a 6,000 square foot building to a brand new 15,000 square foot building. The new building includes rooms for fluoroscopy, endoscopy, chemotherapy, ultrasounds, x-rays, CT scans, MRIs, physical therapy, 4 operating rooms, and 15 exam rooms.
We've made vast improvements in our operating room capacity and the quality of the equipment in the rooms, and the facility overall has just been a massive upgrade.
Dana Wurstler and her 11-year-old Dalmatian Lulabelle have taken a 2-hour drive from Florence, South Carolina to Veterinary Specialty Care. A few weeks ago, Dana noticed Lulabelle was experiencing pain when moving her mouth.
When she would yawn, she would begin to yawn and then stop. She was having difficulty eating.
After recognizing that Lulabelle was in pain, Dana also noticed a mass on her jaw.
I finally went to the veterinarian in Florence, and when they started looking at it, it was something that they could not handle, and they got in contact with the doctors here, and then I made an appointment and we came down here.
When the mouth opens, part of the mandible swings forward under that arch, and if there's a mass there, it will interfere with that. So we're not sure if it's that the mass is interfering or if somehow this tumor is actually involving the bone of the mandible.
I feel scared, really scared. I'm hoping for miraculous recovery and everything is great, and she looks fine, and she's my dog, I love her.
To determine where the mass is located and how big it is, a CT scan will be taken of Lulabelle's jaw. This will also help Dr. Bianucci navigate around the mandible more accurately during the surgery. A referral case from Bees Ferry Veterinary Hospital has come to Veterinary Specialty Care. Kelly Atkinson is here with her 8-year-old French bulldog, Logan, for an MRI with Dr. Brofman. Logan has been having trouble walking and appears to have a neurological disorder.
It started a few months ago. He started limping a little bit. We just started walking him and exercising him a little bit more 3 or 4 times a week, and it wasn't going away because the doctor said it could be arthritis. And then taking him back to the vet, they said it could be a pinched nerve. And then it just kind of, a couple of months ago, just went downhill where he was, losing control of his bowel movements. He was falling down and he fell down the stairs one day, and we took him to his regular vet at Bees Ferry. They suggested we bring him here.
They sent him over here for an evaluation by me for his neurological problem. The thing I am most suspicious of affecting Logan is a malformation of the spine, which we see pretty frequently in French bulldogs, and it often causes compression of the spinal cord and causes the signs we're seeing. However, there's a number of other conditions. We may see an infection or inflammation, tumor, or even a disc protrusion.
The next step or possible steps would be surgery or chemotherapy, depending on what it is. And just the thing is keeping him happy and not in any pain is our main concern. And it's killing me at this point. I usually don't come to the vet visits because I usually have a hard time, and I come tissue in hand ready. I just don't take it well. I'm just scared. I'm scared to find out what it is.
Hey.
Hello again.
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
All right, good. Hey, bud. All right. So yeah, we'll be able to get started right away. We'll take Logan on back and get a catheter into him. And you want to give him a kiss?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll carry him. I'll carry him on back. All right. All right. We'll take good care of him. I know you're worried, but.
And we all put this with him when he's.
Sure. All right. We're going to perform an MRI, and hopefully the MRI will show us what is causing the abnormality in his spinal cord. Is it something compressing the spinal cord from the outside that we may have to do surgery to remove, to decompress the cord, or is it something inside the spinal cord that would require more medical management?
It's more about quality of life for me. I'm not going to be one of those people that if he is in pain, that I'm just going to, drug him up and keep him around. But if he's not in any pain and he's still happy, I'll do what we can to keep him around.
Dr. Brofman is conducting an MRI on Logan in hopes of determining the root of his neurological problems.
This is the spinal cord running along here. And what I'm seeing so far right now is this little area of whiteness. So that's fluid of some sort, bruising, fluid pockets from chronic injury. We'll have a better idea once we get some more images as to what this is. But this is what I'm seeing so far, and then I'm going to have to get some more images up further up. The major concern I have is this mass or abnormality inside the spinal cord, which would be most consistent either with a spinal tumor or some sort of inflammation of the spinal cord. Is there something compressing it, or is it something going on inside, like a tumor is one possibility. It's just not sure if it's going to be something inside the spinal cord or on the outside pushing on it, causing that sign.
After reviewing Lulabelle's CT scan results, Dr. Bianucci has discovered another concerning issue with her jaw.
Not only is Lulabelle dealing with the pain of a destructive tumor in the bone, but she also has a fractured jawbone as a result of the tumor. So we're going to take out essentially this entire quarter of the mandible. With the type of tumor that this most likely is, and we'll confirm it, but the prognosis is really, it's not good. These things tend to come back. This is most likely osteosarcoma, and these are tumors that tend to recur. This tumor is interfering with this dog's ability to open its mouth, and so it's making eating painful. And so, the dog would still have some time if we didn't do anything, but it would be uncomfortable time. And so the hope is that, what we're doing here is going to alleviate that discomfort, and then we can figure out exactly what kind of cancer this is and potentially treat it with chemotherapy. They can live with just one side intact. So you can take one half of the jaw out, and they can do fine with the remainder. There's some significant nerve structures here that we need to worry about too. It's a small space, and there's lots of nerves and lots of big blood vessels. So you always have to move very slowly. The soft tissue part of this tumor is even a little bigger than it looked on the CT scan even. So it's a really big mass. It goes in towards the inside. We can definitely get it, but it's a little bit larger than it looked on the CT scan. I suspected osteosarcoma because of the way it was affecting the bone, but this could be any kind of sarcoma.
Specialty Care, Dr. Bianucci is trying to safely remove the mass from Lulabelle's jaw before excising the fracture in her mandible.
Here's the tumor, all here under these muscles, and then down here on the jaw. So we've taken away this arch of bone right there, and now we're going to the mandible, which is below it, and we're going to take out this back section of that. So this is where we are now. Okay, now we're going to actually do the osteotomy. We're making our first cut into the mandible. The mandibular part is out. So this tumor filled that whole space and had actually fractured the bone. Well, I think we did a good job here. I think we got everything out that you can see. We're going to just try to put everything that remains back as close as possible to where it started. These guys really bounce back pretty quickly, surprisingly fast. So my hope is that we're going to be sending little Lulabelle home tomorrow.
After the surgery is completed, Lulabelle is transferred to recovery, where she will remain until she's ready to be released. Dr. Brofman has finished Logan's MRI, but is still unsure of the diagnosis. The next step will be a spinal tap to help solve the mystery behind his neurological issues.
So what I'm doing now is I'm going to be doing a spinal tap to get fluid from around the spinal cord. So right now what we have here is spinal fluid dripping from the needle. And so the spinal fluid is the fluid that kind of bathes and surrounds the entire nervous system. And the purpose of obtaining this is there's some non-specific swelling in the middle of the spinal cord, so on the MRI. So possibilities include a tumor, an infection or inflammation, potentially even just chronic trauma if there's instability there. But this just helps give us a more complete picture of what's going on. So what I'm doing here is trying to remove fluid without also getting the blood that is contaminating the sample. With Logan's condition, the prognosis is somewhat guarded. We're not entirely sure without doing a biopsy what exactly it is. If it's a sterile inflammatory process where the immune system becomes hyperactive and attacks the nervous system, the long-term prognosis on average, dogs live about 1.5 to 2 years. If it's a spinal tumor with just medical management, it may progress over even just a few months, 3 to 6 months, but there are other treatment options such as radiation therapy, chemotherapy, which could extend that survival time, but still it's something that they do eventually succumb to.
Although the diagnosis is still unknown, Dr. Brofman will have to tell Kelly that Logan's lifespan will most likely be cut short.
I knew it wasn't going to be good news, but he's not hurting right now, so that's what's important. So we just get to go home and see where we go from here.
After I discussed Logan's finding with Kelly, she was quite upset. She was crying and understanding at the same time. She was a bit overwhelmed, though.
Kelly will have to process the news before she and her husband make any decisions. Without a definitive cure, it will be hard to decide if chemotherapy is a step in the right direction. 2 weeks have passed since Logan's MRI. Today, he is back in for a follow-up exam with Dr. Brofman.
For the past 2 weeks, he's been on some prednisone, which is a steroid to decrease the swelling in the spinal cord. And we had discussed 2 weeks ago the treatment options that were available to him. And she's had some time to think about it, and she just wants to come in and talk about the options again and to help her make her decision.
When we first found out what it could be, 2 weeks to process it and think about treatment and see how he's been reacting to what he's on. has made a difference, and he's still a happy dog, which is very important. I know that chemo won't necessarily improve it, but it could, and that he can live out his life instead of having some disease take it.
Hey, bud. So how are things going?
About the same.
Yeah? Okay. Let me have you I just want to see him walk a little bit. Right now I'm watching Logan walk up and down the hallway, and after a couple weeks on the prednisone, he may be a little bit better, but really not all that significantly. He's still quite weak and incoordinated, so what we'll probably have to do is increase the dose of prednisone while Kelly is deciding what treatment she wants to pursue. And so you haven't noticed any other problems, though? No, nothing affecting his front legs or anything like that?
No.
So the whole purpose of the administration of the steroids is to decrease the swelling in the spinal cord, and that will hopefully lessen the disruption of the signals that go from the brain to the legs, and then that would result in a more coordinated ability to walk and less weakness. So basically it's either going to be a spinal tumor or this sterile inflammation of the spinal cord. We don't know exactly what we're treating, but to get a biopsy of it would just cause more problems than solve.
Will there ever be a sign that'll tell us which one it is, or?
No, unfortunately not. I think that if other parts of the nervous system started to be affected, I'd be leaning more towards it being the inflammation, because usually the types of tumors we see inside the spinal cord in Frenchies like that would be very unlikely to spread to other parts of the nervous system, whereas the inflammation would be more likely to. If it is the inflammation, there are some dogs that, can't, like I said, on average, 1.5 to 2 years, but there are some dogs that are out there 3, 4, 5 years and seem to be, cured or on lifelong chemotherapy and or prednisone. So, yeah, I mean, they can do well. It's just really variable from dog to dog. But I think in the meantime, definitely let's bump up the prednisone to once a day.
Okay.
Okay. So let me get you the prescription for the prednisone, and then you can talk to your husband and send me an email, and we can make a decision.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Kelly is going to discuss with her husband the different treatment options we discussed again, and see if there's any more questions, and based on what they want to do, we'll proceed with either one of several chemotherapy options or just the steroids alone. From working with Logan and Kelly over the last couple of weeks, it's definitely obvious how much Logan means to her and her husband, and how attached they are to him. And so that, makes it hard when I don't have good news for them. I'm hoping that I'll be able to help at least somewhat with the medication and prolong his life as much as possible for them.
We can up the steroids and then try chemo, which my husband's kind of reluctant to do, because when you think of chemo, you think about humans with cancer and how it, destroys their body. But there's supposed to be little to no side effects with the chemo shot, and I think that'll be our next step if it starts to get any worse.
It's been a day since Lulabelle had her surgery, and Dr. Bianucci has cleared her to go home with her family. He won't know if the tumor is benign or malignant until the biopsy results come back. But at this point, there is a strong inclination that it is a fatal tumor.
First of all, I wanted to show you what we did. Okay. What the procedure was. Now, the tumor was here. Okay. It looked like this bone was being pressed against by the tumor. So we took this bone off here, okay? And then we went to here and we cut right there. Now this bone is missing now, so she does have a little bit of a divot on the side of her face. Once this is all healed, she should be able to eat normally. Okay.
Great.
So I know this is hard and sad, but once we find out what it is, that'll give us a guide in terms of what we're gonna do next.
I had said, and I told my friends, I said, look at her. She just looks like she's in pain.
Yes.
And she would just stand there like she was moping.
And that is a really painful thing for these guys, because every time they move their mouth, it hurts. So, we'll keep our fingers crossed in terms of what the biopsy is, because that's going to be the big determinant in terms of what we do next and what the prognosis is, okay? And again, I should have that back in about 3 days.
I feel better because she's not going through the pain of everything.
I think that things went really well, and I think that Lulabelle's going to feel better within a few days, certainly much better in a few days than she has for the past few months.
The worst case scenario would be that she would have to have chemotherapy. I'm kind of considering not doing the chemotherapy, because I've seen people go through that, and it's very, very tough, very hard.
Even if this turns out to be a bad tumor and this is a short-term prognosis, by short, 6-8 months, I think there'll be 6 or 8 comfortable months for her.
I'm not sure what I'm going to do. It's going to be a hard decision. It's going to be really difficult.
The tumor came back as a fibrosarcoma, which is not good news. It's better than some tumors. We discussed the options of radiation or chemotherapy, which could potentially slow down the recurrence. Probably wouldn't cure it, and I think the owners decided that what we've done is going to be as far as she's going to go. I'm optimistic, though, that we're going to get a good, extended period of time out of this. It could be, it might only be 6 months, could easily be a year, could be 2 years. She's much more comfortable. She's eating, she's yawning, she's barking. She's much more comfortable than she was. So it's always nice to see that payoff, to have a very short period of discomfort followed by hopefully an extended time of comfort and ease.